Well, teens usually feel on top of the world and invincible, but we know more than a third of fatal or serious injury crashes involve our young drivers.
Yeah, so here to talk a little bit more about teen safety is Michelle Donati with AAA Arizona. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. Why are our teens at such risk on the roads?
Sure. As a safety advocate, AAA recognizes two main factors that put teens at greater risk. One is inexperience. So it takes years and years to become a safe driver. Teens are just starting out, so they lack that critical experience. And then second is their likelihood to engage in risky driving behaviors. So they're more likely to text and drive, use their cell phone. They lack speed management, space management. They look at the road directly in front of them as opposed to maintaining a 360-degree look at what's going around in the vehicle outside of them. So those two factors make them the most dangerous driving demographic on our roadways.
Okay, and the numbers here, they're pretty alarming. What exactly did you guys find out?
Sure. So earlier this year, AAA Arizona and Phoenix Children's Hospital, we conducted a focus group at 3 Valley high schools. We really wanted to get a pulse on what's happening with teen drivers here locally. And what we found, not necessarily surprising, but still alarming. We found that a number of teens admitted to driving without a permit or a license on a regular basis. So driving illegally. We found that many teens admitted to texting while driving, using cell phones while driving. And what's interesting about that is the younger teens, so the teens that were like 14 to 16, they admitted to doing it on a regular basis. But once teens got a little bit older, say 17 and older, that number tripled. So the older the teen, the more likely they were to engage in that risky driving behavior. They were almost nearly 70% said they drive with passengers, which we know increases crash risk. And then a number of them also admitted to not wearing a safety belt while driving.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible to hear that the older they get, the more they're using those phones, probably the longer something doesn't happen to them. It's almost like Russian roulette a little bit, like testing their luck, and that's just very scary. To hear that.
It's the invincibility factor. So as you mentioned, they think they're invincible, but we know that they're not. And we drilled a little bit further down into some of these answers and asked them, why do you do these things? And a number of them, in regards to the texting and driving, they said, well, we know that it's dangerous at first, but once I have a little more experience, I think I can do it safely. So that's why they plan on texting and driving a little bit later. Some of them said, I see my mom and dad doing it. So, you know, if they don't have that good example at home, if they see their mom and dad doing something inside the vehicle, they're going to think it's safe for them to do as well.
Sure. Now, let me ask you this, because sometimes it's hard to get through to teens. So how do you suggest that you guys do that and parents do that to make sure everyone is staying safe?
Sure. Well, one thing we're doing with the high schools that we conducted these focus groups in, we've launched a community-based intervention with Phoenix Children's Hospital. It's called Steer Factor. It's a semester-long pilot program we're doing at these 3 schools. It's going to address what we found in the focus groups head on. We're talking about consequences, peer pressure, working directly with parents. So that's something that we're doing with Phoenix Children's. If you don't have a teen at one of these high schools, there's plenty of things you can do to reduce your teen's risk. So one of the biggest things, get involved and stay involved. Once your teen earns their license, don't let the conversation be over at that point. You need to stay involved. Have an agreement with your teen. We have a free one on our website you can download. It's just its parameters. In addition to state laws, address things like passengers, curfews, distractions. Make sure that your teen knows what's required of them to maintain the privilege of driving. Also, set a good example. You have the greatest influence over your teen drivers, so practice what you preach. If you don't want them texting and driving, using their cell phone and driving, you need to put yours away as well.
That's a very good point, Michelle. Thank you so much for being here with us. We appreciate it. All very important tips. I'm hoping we're going to put this online, and that way everybody, you can get those tips later on at abc15.com. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, Michelle.